The Hidden Psychology of Great Speakers. Chapter 1. Why Some Voices Are Impossible to Ignore. Close your eyes for a moment and think about the last person who truly captured your attention. Maybe it was a teacher who made even the most complicated idea feel simple. A leader who inspired an entire room with only a few sentences. A friend whose words stayed with you long after the conversation ended. Now ask yourself a different question. What made them unforgettable? Was it a perfect voice? Exceptional intelligence? A natural gift they were simply born with? Most people believe the answer is yes. They're wrong. The ability to communicate with confidence isn't a rare talent reserved for a lucky few. It's a collection of habits, mental patterns, and psychological principles that anyone can learn. Every remarkable speaker you admire, from business leaders and entrepreneurs to inspiring teachers and captivating storytellers, once struggled to express themselves just like everyone else. The difference wasn't talent, it was training. By the end of this chapter, you'll begin seeing communication through an entirely different lens. You'll understand why some people instantly earn trust while others are ignored. Why confidence often has little to do with how someone actually feels, and why changing the way you think is the first step toward changing the way you speak. Let's begin where every great speaker starts, not with words, but with the mind behind them. The story we tell ourselves. Long before you speak your first sentence, something else is already speaking. It's your inner voice. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it shouts. Don't embarrass yourself. You'll probably forget what to say. Everyone is going to notice how nervous you are. This silent conversation happens so quickly that many people mistake it for reality. Imagine two colleagues walking into the same meeting. Both have prepared equally well. Both know the subject inside and out. The first person thinks, "I hope I don't make a mistake." The second thinks, "I'm here to help people understand something useful." They possess the same knowledge, yet their presentations will feel completely different. Why? Because listeners respond not only to words, but also to the emotional state behind those words. Communication begins long before your mouth opens. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a feedback loop. Thoughts influence emotions, emotions shape behavior, behavior creates results. Those results reinforce the original thoughts. If you believe you're a poor speaker, you'll likely hesitate. That hesitation makes your delivery less effective. When the audience responds with less enthusiasm, your belief feels confirmed. The cycle repeats. Fortunately, the opposite is equally true. A healthier mindset creates calmer emotions. Calmer emotions lead to clearer communication. Better communication builds positive experiences. Those experiences gradually strengthen genuine confidence. This is why improving your speaking skills isn't only about vocabulary or pronunciation. It's about changing the conversation happening inside your own head. Why confidence is often an illusion. Many people imagine confident speakers never feel nervous. That's one of the biggest myths in communication. Even experienced presenters often experience butterflies before stepping onto a stage. Athletes feel pressure before a championship. Musicians feel it before a performance. The feeling itself isn't the problem. The interpretation is. One person experiences a racing heartbeat and thinks, "I'm losing control." Another notices the exact same sensation and thinks, "My body is preparing me to perform."
The physical experience hasn't changed, only the meaning attached to it has. This small mental shift changes everything. Research in performance psychology has repeatedly suggested that how people interpret stress can significantly influence how they perform under pressure. Instead of treating nervousness as evidence of weakness, many successful performers view it as energy waiting to be directed. That perspective doesn't magically eliminate anxiety, it transforms the relationship with it. Great speakers aren't fearless, they're simply unwilling to let fear make their decisions. The first impression happens before you speak. Imagine someone walks onto a stage. No words, no introduction, no slides. Within seconds, the audience has already formed an opinion. Human beings make astonishingly fast judgments. We notice posture, facial expressions, movement, eye contact, and emotional energy, almost automatically.
This isn't about superficial appearance. It's about perceived safety. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors needed to quickly decide whether another person represented a threat, a friend, or someone worth following. Our brains still make similar rapid assessments today. If someone appears calm, present, and genuine, we naturally become more willing to listen. If someone looks uncomfortable, avoids eye contact, and constantly apologizes before speaking, our attention begins drifting elsewhere. Notice something important. None of these impressions require extraordinary charisma. They simply require awareness. Standing with balanced posture, taking one slow breath before speaking, looking at people instead of looking down, beginning without apologizing. Small behaviors create surprisingly large psychological effects. People often remember how you made them feel more vividly than the exact words you used. Why people really listen. Suppose two individuals explain the same idea. The first uses complicated vocabulary, trying to sound impressive. The second explains the idea clearly, using relatable examples that make the audience think, "That makes sense." Who earns more trust? Usually, it's the second person. Many inexperienced speakers believe complexity creates credibility. In reality, clarity creates connection. Think about the teachers you respected most. Chances are they didn't overwhelm you with complicated language. Instead, they made difficult ideas understandable. That ability reflects confidence. Confused speakers often hide behind big words. Confident speakers make complicated things simple. People don't listen because you're trying to sound intelligent. They listen because you help them understand something valuable. That's a profound difference. Whenever you prepare to speak, ask yourself one question. How can I make this easier for someone else to understand? That single question shifts your attention away from yourself and toward your audience. Ironically, that's when nervousness often begins to shrink. The invisible need we all share. Every conversation is shaped by one silent question. Can I trust this person? Trust isn't built by speaking the loudest. It isn't created through perfect grammar, nor is it earned by pretending to know everything. Trust grows when people sense authenticity. Think about conversations you've enjoyed most. The other person probably listened carefully. They admitted when they didn't know something. They smiled naturally instead of forcing enthusiasm. They seemed interested rather than desperate to impress. These qualities appear simple, yet they're surprisingly rare. People are remarkably good at detecting insincerity. When someone exaggerates constantly, interrupts others, or speaks only to gain attention, listeners often disengage, even if they can't explain exactly why. Authenticity creates psychological safety, and psychological safety invites attention. The most memorable speakers rarely try to appear perfect. They strive to appear real. That distinction changes everything. A new definition of communication. Many people believe communication means talking.
In reality, communication means creating understanding. Sometimes the most powerful communicator in a room says the fewest words. They ask thoughtful questions. They notice emotions. They adapt their message to the people listening. They make others feel seen. Speaking is only part of communication. Listening is the other half. When these two skills work together, conversations become meaningful instead of transactional. As you continue through this audiobook, you'll discover techniques for improving your voice, organizing your thoughts, handling difficult conversations, and speaking with greater confidence. But remember this first lesson above all others. The strongest voice doesn't always influence people. The clearest mind usually does, and every lasting transformation begins there.
The Hidden Psychology of Great Speakers, Part 2. The Fear That Almost Everyone Hides. Imagine standing in front of a room filled with strangers. Before you've spoken a single sentence, your palms begin to sweat, your heartbeat speeds up, your mind races. You haven't failed. No one has criticized you, yet your body reacts as though you're facing real danger. Why? Because to the human brain, social rejection has always mattered. For thousands of years, belonging to a group wasn't simply comforting, it was essential for survival. Being accepted meant protection. Being excluded could mean isolation. Although the modern world has changed, parts of our brains still respond to social evaluation with remarkable intensity. That uncomfortable feeling before speaking isn't proof that you're incapable. It's evidence that you're human. The mistake many people make is believing confident speakers don't experience this reaction. In reality, they simply refuse to let it become the author of their story. The next time you feel nervous before speaking, don't ask, "How do I stop feeling this?" Instead, ask, "How do I keep moving while feeling this?" That single shift separates growth from stagnation. Your audience is thinking less about you than you imagine. Here's something surprisingly comforting. Most people aren't analyzing every word you say. They're thinking about themselves. Someone in the audience is wondering whether they look tired. Someone else is worried about a deadline. Another person is deciding what to cook for dinner. We often fall victim to what psychologists call the spotlight effect, the tendency to believe everyone notices our mistakes far more than they actually do. Trip over one word and it feels unforgettable. Forget one sentence and you imagine the room will remember it forever. The truth is usually much kinder. Most listeners forgive small mistakes within seconds, especially when the speaker remains calm. Ironically, it's often the panic after a mistake, not the mistake itself, that captures attention. If you pause, smile, and continue, people tend to move on with you. Your audience wants to succeed more often than you realize. After all, they came to hear something valuable, not to watch someone fail. Why authenticity always outlasts perfection. Many new speakers chase perfection. Every sentence must sound flawless. Every pause must disappear. Every answer must be immediate. But perfection creates distance. Authenticity creates connection. Think about the people you enjoy listening to. Perhaps they occasionally laugh at themselves. Perhaps they admit when they don't know something. Perhaps they tell honest stories instead of pretending they've mastered every challenge. These moments don't weaken credibility, they strengthen it. People trust those who feel genuine. A polished performance may impress an audience, an authentic one stays with them. That doesn't mean speaking carelessly, it means allowing yourself to sound like a real person instead of a perfectly scripted machine. Ironically, that's when confidence begins to feel natural rather than forced. Every great speaker is also a great listener.
Most people assume communication is measured by how much someone talks. In reality, outstanding communicators spend a surprising amount of time listening. Why? Because people rarely remember those who spoke the most. They remember those who made them feel understood. Listening isn't waiting for your turn. It isn't silently preparing your next argument. It's giving someone your full attention. When people feel heard, they become more open, more cooperative, more willing to trust. This is why influential leaders often ask thoughtful questions before offering advice.
They gather information. They understand emotions. Only then do they speak. When your goal changes from "I want to sound impressive" to "I want to understand people," your communication transforms. Words become more relevant. Conversations become more meaningful. Influence becomes a natural outcome instead of something you have to chase. The quiet power of curiosity. Curiosity is one of the most underrated communication skills. Confident people don't pretend to know everything. They remain curious. Instead of rushing to prove themselves right, they ask, "Can you tell me more? What led you to that conclusion? How did that experience change your perspective?" Questions like these do something remarkable. They encourage deeper conversations. They reduce defensiveness. They build trust without manipulation. People enjoy talking with those who are genuinely interested in them. Curiosity shifts the focus away from your own anxiety and towards discovering something new. Ironically, that's one of the fastest ways to become a better speaker, because every meaningful conversation begins with genuine interest. Speaking is an act of service. This idea changes everything. Most nervous speakers focus on themselves. How do I look? Do I sound intelligent? What if I forget? Notice the common theme. Every question begins with "I." Great communicators ask different questions. What does my audience need? How can I make this idea easier to understand? What problem can I help solve? That shift turns speaking into service rather than performance. When your purpose becomes helping rather than impressing, pressure begins to fade. You stop chasing approval. Instead, you start creating value. Audiences recognize this almost immediately. People naturally trust speakers who clearly want to help them. Purpose is often louder than confidence. Small habits create extraordinary results. Many people search for a secret technique that instantly transforms their communication. There isn't one. Real improvement usually comes from ordinary habits repeated consistently. Read every day. Expand your vocabulary naturally. Pay attention to how skilled speakers pause before important ideas. Record yourself speaking and listen without judgment. Practice explaining complicated topics in simple language. Replace filler words with brief moments of silence. Have conversations with people outside your usual circle. Each habit seems insignificant on its own. Together, they reshape the way you think and communicate. Progress rarely arrives through dramatic breakthroughs. More often, it arrives quietly, one conversation at a time. The speaker you become starts today. Picture yourself 1 year from now. You walk into a meeting. People stop talking as you begin. Not because you're the loudest person in the room, because they know your words are worth hearing. You answer questions without rushing. You tell stories that people remember. You handle disagreement calmly. You speak with clarity instead of uncertainty. This version of you isn't imaginary. It's the result of consistent practice. Confidence isn't built in a single speech. It's built across hundreds of ordinary conversations that slowly reshape your identity. Every time you choose to speak despite feeling nervous, you're teaching your brain a new lesson. I can do difficult things. Those lessons accumulate. Eventually, they become who you are. The chapter reflection.
The first chapter has revealed a simple but powerful truth. Great speakers are not born with a mysterious gift. They develop a way of thinking that supports the way they communicate. They understand that fear is natural, that authenticity matters more than perfection, that listening is as valuable as speaking, that serving the audience is more important than impressing them. Most importantly, they realize confidence is not something you wait to feel. It's something you build through action. In the next chapter, we'll move from psychology to practice. You'll discover why even capable people lose confidence when speaking, how to overcome the fear of public speaking, and the daily mental habits that allow ordinary individuals to communicate with remarkable calm, clarity, and conviction. Because once your mind stops working against you, your voice has a chance to be heard.
Chapter 2: Building Unshakable Speaking Confidence, Part 1. Imagine two people walking onto the same stage. Both have prepared for weeks. Both know the topic inside and out. Both want to leave a lasting impression. Yet within moments, one speaker commands the room with calm confidence, while the other struggles to find the right words. The difference isn't intelligence, it isn't experience, and it certainly isn't luck. The real difference is something invisible, a mindset built long before either speaker stepped onto the stage. Confidence isn't something you suddenly feel. It's something you repeatedly prove to yourself. In this chapter, you'll discover why fear isn't your enemy, why confidence grows through action rather than waiting, and how a few simple mental habits can completely change the way you speak. Let's begin with the biggest misunderstanding of them all. Confidence is built, not born. Think back to the first time you learned to ride a bicycle. You probably felt uncertain, your balance was shaky, every turn seemed risky, and falling felt almost inevitable. But something interesting happened. The more you practiced, the less you thought about staying balanced. What once demanded all your attention eventually became second nature. Speaking works the same way. Unfortunately, many people expect the opposite. They believe confidence should come first, and only then will they begin speaking. Life doesn't work that way. Confidence follows evidence. Every time you speak despite feeling nervous, you're collecting evidence that says, "I survived." Every successful conversation adds another piece of proof. Over time, your brain begins replacing doubt with familiarity. This explains why even experienced speakers continue practicing. They understand that confidence isn't a destination you reach once. It's a skill you maintain through consistent action. Waiting to feel completely confident before speaking is like waiting for perfect weather before learning to sail. You'll spend more time waiting than growing. Why your brain thinks speaking is dangerous. Have you ever noticed how quickly your body reacts before an important presentation? Your breathing changes, your hands become cold, your heart beats faster, your thoughts begin racing. At first glance, these reactions seem unhelpful, but they're actually signs that your brain is trying to protect you. Deep inside the brain is a system designed to detect possible threats. Long ago, this system helped our ancestors survive genuine dangers. Today, however, it sometimes struggles to distinguish between physical danger and social discomfort. Standing in front of an audience isn't life-threatening, yet your brain may respond as though it is. This explains why intelligent, capable people suddenly struggle to remember simple ideas the moment everyone begins watching. The goal isn't to eliminate this response entirely. The goal is to teach your brain that speaking is safe. Every calm presentation, every successful meeting, every conversation where you push through discomfort sends the same message. We're safe. We can do this again. Little by little, your nervous system begins believing it. Stop fighting nervousness. Many people waste enormous amounts of energy trying not to feel nervous. Ironically, this often makes anxiety even stronger. Imagine holding a beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the harder it tries to rise. Emotions often behave the same way. Instead of asking, "How do I stop being nervous?" try asking, "How do I speak well while feeling nervous?" That question changes everything. Professional athletes don't wait until fear disappears before competing. Actors don't wait until every doubt fades before stepping onto a stage. Successful communicators aren't fearless. They're simply comfortable performing alongside discomfort. The goal isn't emotional perfection, it's emotional management.
Replace performance with purpose. One of the fastest ways to reduce anxiety is surprisingly simple. Stop making the conversation about yourself. Before speaking, many people ask, "Will they like me? What if I make a mistake? Do I sound intelligent enough?" Every one of these questions turns your attention inward. Now imagine asking different questions. What can I teach today? How can I make someone's day a little easier? What problem can I help solve? Notice how your focus changes. Instead of protecting your image, you're creating value. Purpose has an interesting effect on confidence. When helping others becomes your priority, self-consciousness begins to lose its grip. Your audience stops feeling like judges. They become people you're trying to serve. That's a completely different mindset. The 5-minute confidence ritual. Many confident speakers develop small routines before important conversations, not because these rituals are magical, because consistency creates familiarity. Here's a simple routine you can use. Take one slow, deep breath. Relax your shoulders. Stand upright instead of collapsing into yourself. Remind yourself why your message matters. Visualize one person benefiting from what you're about to say. Then begin. This entire process takes less than 5 minutes, yet it sends a powerful signal to your brain. Instead of rushing into the situation with panic, you're entering it with intention. Over time, your mind starts associating this routine with calm performance. That's how habits become confidence. Confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. Imagine promising yourself you'll practice speaking for 10 minutes today. Then you do it. Tomorrow, you make the same promise. Again, you keep it. Day after day, something subtle begins changing. You start trusting yourself. Real confidence isn't built by repeating positive affirmations while avoiding difficult situations. It's built by consistently doing what you said you would do. Every promise you keep strengthens your identity. Eventually, you stop thinking, "I'm trying to become a confident speaker." Instead, you begin believing, "I am someone who practices communication every day." That shift in identity is incredibly powerful. People rarely rise above the standards they've set for themselves, but they almost always live up to the identity they believe they possess. So choose that identity carefully, not because it feels good, because your future conversations will be shaped by it. Before moving on, try one simple exercise. Within the next 24 hours, start a conversation you would normally avoid. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Speak to a colleague you rarely talk with. Ask a thoughtful question during a meeting. Introduce yourself to someone new, or simply express an opinion you would normally keep to yourself. The objective isn't to be perfect. The objective is to prove to your brain that speaking up is safe. Every small act of courage becomes another brick in the foundation of lasting confidence. And as you'll discover in the next part of this chapter, confidence doesn't only come from what you think, it also comes from how you use your voice, your body, and your attention. Those silent signals often communicate more than words ever could.
Building unshakable speaking confidence. Part 2. Think about the last time you hesitated before speaking. Perhaps you had an idea that could have improved a meeting. Maybe you wanted to ask a question, offer an opinion, or introduce yourself to someone new. But instead, you stayed quiet. A few minutes later, someone else expressed almost the same idea, and everyone listened. That moment isn't simply frustrating, it's expensive. Every time fear convinces you to remain silent, it quietly steals opportunities, relationships, and possibilities that may never return. The encouraging news is this: confidence isn't hidden somewhere in your future. It's created by the choices you make today, one conversation at a time. Let's continue building that confidence. Your body speaks before you do. Walk into any room and people begin forming impressions before you've said a single word. Your posture, your pace, your eye contact, even the way you breathe. These signals tell a story long before your voice enters the conversation. Confident people aren't always aware of the signals they're sending. Over time, those behaviors simply become habits. Fortunately, habits can be learned. Start with posture. Stand naturally. Keep your shoulders relaxed instead of tense. Lift your head just enough to make comfortable eye contact. You don't need to look powerful. You need to look present. Avoid rushing into conversations as though you're apologizing for taking up space. Instead, pause for a brief moment before speaking. That tiny pause communicates calmness, not hesitation. People often mistake speed for confidence. In reality, rushing usually suggests anxiety. Calmness is far more persuasive. The strength of a steady voice. Have you ever noticed that the most influential speakers rarely sound hurried? They allow their words to breathe. They understand that silence isn't something to fear, it's something to use. Many inexperienced speakers try to fill every second with words because silence feels uncomfortable. Ironically, those brief pauses are often what make a message memorable. Imagine hearing these two sentences. Success comes from hard work, consistency, learning, and patience. Now compare it with this. Success comes from hard work, consistency, and patience. The second version gives your mind time to absorb the message. Silence creates emphasis. It allows important ideas to land. The next time you speak, don't rush to fill every empty moment. A calm pause often says more than another sentence. Stop chasing perfect words. One of the biggest traps in communication is believing you must always say exactly the right thing. As a result, your brain begins searching for perfect sentences. While it's searching, you stop listening. You hesitate. You lose the natural rhythm of the conversation. Confident speakers understand something different. People respond more to clarity than perfection. Simple words delivered with sincerity almost always outperform complicated language delivered with uncertainty. If you momentarily forget what you planned to say, don't panic. Take a breath. Summarize the main idea in simpler language. Most listeners won't notice the difference. The conversation matters more than the script. Turning mistakes into momentum. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone. You might forget a point, mispronounce a word, lose your train of thought.
Even experienced presenters encounter unexpected moments. What separates confident speakers isn't avoiding mistakes, it's recovering from them. Imagine dropping a pen during an important presentation. One speaker freezes, apologizes repeatedly, and becomes increasingly distracted. Another smiles, picks it up, and continues speaking as though nothing happened. Which person appears more confident? The second. Not because they avoided the mistake, because they refused to let a small interruption define the entire experience. Most audiences follow your emotional reaction. If you remain composed, they usually remain relaxed as well. Confidence isn't measured by perfection, it's measured by recovery. Imagine improving your communication by just 1% every day.
At first, the difference would feel almost invisible. A slightly clearer explanation, a little more eye contact, one fewer filler word, a calmer response during disagreement. Small improvements rarely attract attention in a single day, yet after weeks and months, those tiny gains begin working together. This is how remarkable communicators are built, not through dramatic transformations, through consistent repetition. Set aside 10 minutes each day. Read aloud from a book. Record your voice. Practice explaining an idea without notes. Tell a short story to a friend. Reflect on one conversation you had that day. Ask yourself, what went well? What could I improve next time? Growth begins with awareness. Confidence grows through action. Many people spend years waiting for confidence to appear. They read books, they watch videos, take notes, learn theories, yet they avoid the one thing that actually creates confidence: action. Knowledge without practice changes very little. Imagine reading 20 books about swimming while never entering the water. No matter how much information you collect, your confidence will remain limited. Communication follows the same principle. Learning matters. Practice matters more. Every conversation becomes a training session. Every presentation becomes feedback. Every uncomfortable moment becomes an opportunity to grow stronger. When you adopt this mindset, failure loses much of its power. Instead of asking, "Did I succeed?" you begin asking, "What did this experience teach me?" That question transforms every setback into progress. Becoming the person you admire. Think about someone whose communication skills you genuinely respect. Perhaps they're calm under pressure. Perhaps they explain difficult ideas clearly. Perhaps people naturally pay attention when they speak. Now consider something important. Those qualities didn't appear overnight. They were shaped through years of conversations, mistakes, adjustments, and practice. Rather than comparing yourself with where they are today, compare yourself with who you were yesterday. Did you speak up once more than you usually would? Did you remain calm during a difficult discussion? Did you listen more carefully? If the answer is yes, you're already moving forward. Confidence grows quietly. You often notice it only after looking back. One day you'll realize that situations which once terrified you now feel ordinary. That's how genuine growth happens. Not all at once, but little by little. Chapter Reflection. This chapter began with a simple idea. Confidence is built, not inherited. Along the way, you've discovered that nervousness is not an enemy, but a natural response your brain can learn to manage. You've seen how your posture, breathing, voice, and pace shape the way others experience your message before they even think about your words. Perhaps the most important lesson is this: confidence doesn't arrive before action. Action creates confidence. Each time you choose to speak despite uncertainty, you strengthen a new identity. Each conversation becomes another piece of evidence that you are capable of expressing yourself with clarity and purpose. Remember, remarkable communicators aren't defined by flawless performances. They are defined by their willingness to learn, recover, and keep showing up. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to make people genuinely want to listen. You'll learn the psychology of attention, the power of storytelling, and how to organize your ideas so your words leave a lasting impression long after the conversation ends. Because speaking with confidence may open the door, but speaking with impact is what keeps people listening.